Stick until the end to see how this man is guided with the symbols on the wall as he presses them inexplicably for some higher purpose even he doesn't understand. Today, we're reviewing a 2009 fantasy comedy movie titled Symbol. Spoilers ahead, and let's dive right in. A guy from Japan, rocking some wild pajamas, suddenly finds himself waking up in a totally blank room. No doors, no windows, and not even a ceiling in sight. Curiosity gets the best of him, and so he goes to check out one of the walls up close, only to spot something really odd sticking out of it. A bulge that looks like a male's private part. Oh, this ought to be good. After giving it a few pokes, he decides to press the tip, and suddenly a swarm of chuckling baby angels emerges from the floor and walls. They stick around for just a moment before disappearing back the way they came, leaving something peculiar behind. Now, their little forms are poking out from the walls and floor. As he smells his finger after touching the oddly shaped button, the guy lets out a terrified scream, then bursts into tears, pleading for assistance from anyone nearby, but no one responds. Frustrated, he begins pushing the different buttons to see what happens, and each time he does, a new, unexpected item drops into the room, ranging from a tiny toothbrush to a large vase. Pushing the same button once more, he receives another identical object, leading to a stack of chopsticks accumulating from his experimentation with that specific button. However, his amusement is quickly cut short when he decides to press the button adjacent to the one for chopsticks, causing a small cart to emerge from the wall and collide with its legs. After his painful outburst, he decides to press the next button, only to be met with a surprise. It morphs into a tush, releasing a burst of gas right in his face. Hours later, the room is filled with an assortment of random objects as a result of his button pressing spree. I'm wondering, why did he press the button again when it farted on him? When he tosses a ball at the wall, it inadvertently triggers a button, delivering sushi to him. This brings him joy as hunger sets in, but he soon realizes that he's lacking soy sauce. Disheartened, he decides to dig into the sushi, surprisingly finding it quite tasty. Just as he finishes the last piece, the button he had been pressing finally yields the sought-after bottle of soy sauce, much to his annoyance and anger. I actually burst out laughing at this scene. The one who was doing it to him must have a good sense of humor. With frustration, he shoves the bottle aside and decides for another button, receiving a pair of vintage 3D glasses. Wearing them, he catches sight of an angelic figure gesturing towards his private area, sparking a glimmer of hope. Yet upon pressing the same button again, all he's greeted with is a countdown, followed by a colossal buttocks descending from above, releasing gas upon him. He's just gonna continue clicking even if it happens again. Hours pass, during which he delves into the pages of 5 volumes of a manga series, thoroughly enjoying the entertainment they offer. However, his anticipation for the next volume turns into disappointment when pressing the button yields the 7th instead of the desired 6th. Growing frustrated, he tests other buttons, obtaining volumes 8 and 9, yet volume 6 remains missing. However, his persistence pays off when the final button he tries reveals a hidden section of the wall, concealing a door behind it. He already forgot about the 6th volume. Ecstatic over his find, the man's joy clouds his memory of which button triggers the exit. He takes a chance on one randomly, only to be startled as an African tribesman dashes from wall to wall. Another button causes water to cascade down onto his head. On his 3rd attempt, he lucks out and finds the right one. Rushing towards the opening wall, his excitement is cut short as it abruptly shuts in his face. On his 2nd attempt, he faces the same outcome, prompting him to realize that the door remains open only when the tip of the member is down. Initially, he attempts a runner's stance, using his foot to press it. Then, he tries hitting it with a fly swatter from a distance, hoping the added range might change the outcome. However, neither of these tactics prove successful, nor do pulling it with a jump rope or striking it with the airflow from a fan. His next idea involves hopping onto the cart and pushing it after the activation button. However, after several attempts, he resigns to the fact that he's unable to steer it. He realizes that what he really needs to figure out is how to keep the button's tip down. He places the oversized vase on top of the button, but it pops back up again. This leads him to the realization that he must fill the vase to increase its weight. Initially, he attempts to use the water button for this purpose, but it proves futile. Despite his efforts to redirect the water, it only ends up drenching him without filling the vase. Next, he tries filling the vase with sushi, but it becomes too heavy for him to lift. That just shows that they gave him too much sushi. Moreover, the vase's neck is too narrow for him to fit his hands through. Left with no other options, he resorts to using chopsticks to extract the sushi from the vase, piece by piece. Shortly after extracting a sufficient amount of sushi, he struggles to lift the vase, but manages to do so with great effort. Carrying it carefully, he approaches the buttons. However, upon reaching them, he becomes flustered and forgets which button to press. In his haste, he tries one, inadvertently summoning the African tribesman, who accidentally collides with the vase, causing it to crack and split in half. This pushes the man to his limit, sending him into a frenzy of panicked yelling. Amidst the chaos, he finally locates the correct button and attempts to cover it with sushi. However, this tactic proves futile as the small protrusion emerges from among the rice once again. Next, the man attempts to cover the button with tape, then with tape along with a steel plate, yet neither approach proves effective. To alleviate the discomfort from the door repeatedly hitting his back, he takes some painkillers and decides to take a nap. Upon waking, he feels the need to freshen up and decides to wash his teeth, prompting him to press a button to get water. However, it turns out to be the wrong button, as a rope drops from the ceiling instead. This unexpected turn brightens his spirits, as it sparks an idea for a new strategy. He can use the rope to swing across the room after opening the door, ensuring he makes it through before it closes again. Oh, look at Tarzan's plan over here. Disappointingly, his attempt to open the door concealed behind the false wall proves futile as he finds it locked. Hastily returning to the room, he narrowly avoids being struck by the door as it closes, yet frustration increases, leading him to kick the wall in anger. To his surprise, this action triggers one of the buttons, unveiling the key suspended in the middle of the room. All of this guy's discoveries were because of anger. Similar to what occurred with the door, the key disappears when the button retracts, prompting the man to figure out how to keep both the key in the room and the door open. However, before tackling this challenge, he needs to locate the button again, as he got sidetracked and lost track of it. He's just like me. Trying to recall approximately where his foot landed when he kicked the wall, he selects a button, only to be greeted by a dog emerging from the wall and barking at him. The same outcome follows with the next button. Fortunately, his luck turns around on the third attempt. With his gaze fixed on the button and his hand pointing towards it, the man walks backwards and snags a piece of sushi fish. Returning to the wall, he uses the fish to mark the correct button. However, upon pressing it, the dog emerges once more. Undeterred, he quickly locates the correct button and proceeds with his plan. Summoning the rope, he swings across the room to reach the various buttons, but it proves insufficient. Collapsing to the floor, he notices a plunger he had acquired from one of the numerous buttons, sparking an idea to address his predicament. He can utilize the plunger to reach the wall and propel himself further. Although his initial try fails, he soon finds success. By combining swinging on the rope with pushing off using the plunger, he manages to press the button, retrieve the key, activate the door button, and reach the door just in time before it shuts. Who's actually designing these puzzles? However, his attempt to open the door is met with an unpleasant surprise. There's an additional lock at the top, requiring 3 numbers to unlock it. Hastily, the man dashes out, receiving a blow from the closing door in the haste. Frustrated, he hurls the plunger at the opposite wall, inadvertently triggering the button that sets free the African tribesman. Observing the tribesman passing by, he suddenly grasps something significant. There are 3 numbers painted on the tribesman's forehead, likely the combination he requires. With time ticking away behind the door, the man repeats the process of swinging on the rope and jumping 3 times, once for each number of the combination. On the 3rd attempt, he remains in position and successfully unlocks the door, although encountering some resistance that requires him to exert extra force to push it open. After finally succeeding in opening the door, the segment of the wall behind him shuts, trapping him and preventing him from fully opening the door. Crushed by this setback, the man collapses to the floor, tears streaming down his face. Reflecting on the enjoyable moments he experienced with the various objects obtained from the buttons, he recalls being confined before, but at least he had space to move around in entertainment. Now he realizes he didn't fully appreciate what he had when he had it. Maybe the real friends were the room we were never supposed to come out of. Out of nowhere, he senses a breeze brushing against his face from the left wall. Upon investigation, he discovers a crack, signaling that the wall is not real. Without hesitation, he pushes the panel open and quickly leaves, swiftly reaching a mysterious hallway suspended in a pitch-black void. It seems like an endless journey as he races towards an exit, and by the time he reaches a room, his hair has grown longer and the color of his pajamas have dulled. Like the previous room, this one is devoid of furnishings, and the door he enters through swiftly shuts behind him. However, instead of baby angels, he encounters adult ones here. Similar to before, they vanish into the wall, leaving only their protrusions to be used as buttons. This marks the phase known as practice. Phase 2, adulthood. Meanwhile, in a Mexican city, little Antonio's family grow concerned as his father, a wrestler named Escargot Man, exhibits quieter behavior than usual. His wife speculates that it might be due to his upcoming match against a much younger opponent, but the grandfather argues that experience, not age, holds the utmost importance. Sister Karen picks up Escargot Man in her truck and drives him to the wrestling ring to ensure he has enough time to prepare. This routine includes changing attire and offering prayers to the Virgin Mary. Meanwhile, at school, Antonio faces bullying from his peers for betting on Escargot Man, who they label as a feeble loser. Maybe it's because he's her father. Who would bet against their own father? As the match's start time draws near, Sister Karen once again utilizes her van to pick up Antonio and their grandfather, escorting them to witness Escargot Man's performance. However, Karen doesn't stick around, leaving Antonio and his grandfather to secure some of the remaining seats just before the show kicks off. The ring welcomes the Northern Tough Ones as their initial contenders, comprising Super Demon and Tequila Joe. Following them are Escargot Man and his ally, Silver Eagle, adopting the team moniker Kiss Me a Lot. Silver Eagle takes the lead in representing their team with a promising start, but his momentum is swiftly broken when the Northern Tough Ones gang up on him, forsaking the one-on-one approach. They persistently motion for Escargot Man to join the fray, but he adamantly refuses until Silver Eagle ingeniously manipulates Super Demon and Tequila Joe into inadvertently attacking each other, granting him an opportunity to break free. However, Escargot Man soon finds himself overwhelmed too. Just as his opponent is poised to strike him with a chair, the individual in the enigmatic room presses a button, prompting Escargot Man to magically elongate his neck and knock out both adversaries with a powerful headbutt. The man, the myth, the button guy. Inside the room, there's no response, catching the man's interest. He persists in pressing the same button again, leading to Escargot Man inadvertently knocking out Silver Eagle, the referee, Antonio, and even the bell. With no outcome, the man begins experimenting with other buttons. One button prompts the lead singer of a metal band to spew fire over the crowd during a concert in Los Angeles. Another button foils a Russian magician's attempt to make his assistant vanish. And the third compels a man in China to bark at his own dogs. On the verge of giving up, the man notices a glimmer of light emanating from above, and realizes that unlike the previous room, there's no ceiling here, allowing him to spot angels soaring in the distance. Determined to try a different approach, he decides to use the member buttons not for pressing, but as footholds to scale the walls. Thinking outside the box, aren't we? It proves effective, and with each grasp of a button or step on them, remarkable events unfold on Earth, ranging from flowers blooming to an elephant passing away. As he ascends higher, the consequences grow more intricate. It's not just about natural occurrences anymore. Humanity is involved, encompassing both the mundane and the monumental, such as a toaster landing on the moon. You're telling me that this man simply climbing on some private parts is responsible for industrialization and globalization? Upon reaching the summit, the man's hair and beard have grown considerably, and he no longer requires the wall for support. Now, like the angels, he can float effortlessly. Drawing upon the knowledge acquired from his training in the preceding room, he assumes the role of God and deliberately selects humanity's significant moments rather than randomly pressing buttons. As he finishes, he finds himself encircled by feathers instead of walls, and he steps into a radiant portal that transports him to the final room. Here, the walls depict the continents, and there's a colossal member button that he's about to press. This marks the phase known as future. This movie is a really fun way to show how the creation and the existence of our planet is just a question that can never truly be answered. And the topic is really fun to think about. I rate this movie a 7.5 out of 10. What do you think? Looks like this movie pill is starting to wear off. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Tap here to keep the effects going with this next movie, because who can stop at just one? And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, because your next movie dose is just a click away.